And we're live.
Ta-da!
This is the new Meeple syrup with no title screen and fancy music in the front. You just get straight into the good stuff. This is episode 65, puns and news included. We have some good guests also included later on in the show. But first, I want to introduce Daryl Andrews of Meeple Syrup. Daryl, how are you doing?
Hi, happy to be here. Hopefully we'll not mess up any more tech.
And the other bearded one, we have the bearded Meeple. How are you doing?
I am puntastic because I have my spoiler-free Star Wars cup with me.
Fun included right there. Awesome. And then I am Stephanie Straw. I am a guest host on the show because, as you'll notice, we are missing a familiar face that's also not bearded currently, and that is Sen. And Sen is feeling sick, or he's playing hooky. We don't know.
Can't blame the guy.
He's probably playing board games right now. Yeah, he's like, oh, I can't do it. And then he's playing Pandemic Legacy probably right now.
I should jump in right away and clarify, because Suze is on it, as always, one of our favorite guests, who has already tweeted out to us that the chat is not working inside the YouTube, and that is correct. That is because I am not as smart as Sen. And so, because I am not the key holder or password holder, I somehow can't do those fun things. So my apologies to all our wonderful guests. But we ask instead, Suze and everyone else who's watching, please use Twitter. Let's have a Twitter time.
Let's just tweet it out.
Tweet to each other and just include at Meeple Syrup. And feel free to use the hashtag Meeple Syrup, and we'll chat to each other on the Twitter. And maybe this will help compensate for my lack of abilities.
It's almost like we have the technology available.
We almost have a backup technology.
So why don't we jump into what we've been playing lately? Do you want to start, Daryl? You look excited and anxious.
I will start. There were a couple things that I played earlier on the weekend. I got to play, which I was really excited about, Odd Hack Welders 10 Down. Really classic game, and actually the way I learned it was watching Bearded Meeple do a video, and so thanks, because I sometimes don't like reading rules. And then I also got, which I was really excited about, that I got the MLB version of Spot It.
What?
So, as people know, I am a baseball fan. And then I have to give a plug, because I was playing it this week, playtesting stuff, but Fantasy Baseball, a game that I have co-designed with J.R. Honeycutt, which is currently on Kickstarter. We're doing great, but we still need a little help to reach some cool stretch goals. And I actually had the fun opportunity this week to start working on fantasy hockey and fantasy football on some of the names and creatures, because the artists are looking for that stuff and getting somewhat ahead, because we have Adam McIver on board for fantasy football, and so he's looking for some of our decisions on some of the jokes of monsters and names. And then Rob Lundy's back for the hockey, and he's already brainstorming on his live shows on Twitch, which I highly want to recommend. If you want to see one of the most talented board game artists do his thing live, you can tune into twitch.tv/Molten Inc., and that's MOLTENINK. And we'll send a tweet out with that link. But I have to say, Rob Lundy's hilarious. Suze watches it all the time as well. We were chatting about how fantastic it is to watch Rob do his thing. He's talented and just fun to watch. So that's a little bit from me. How about you, Tyler?
This week I played a couple Kickstarter games one is currently out, Smart Money Maker, from Laurence Humier, lady from Milan, little game she designed. Fun little one, learning the way the new economy works. And then another one that's coming out in January, called Conspiracy, which the cards are all based in weekly world news type things, like there's lizard men coming up from the earth.
That sounds cool.
They faked the moon landing. But Bearded Meeple will be appearing in his third game because they're going to do a set of every conspiracy has 5 cards, so there's going to be 5 different board game reviewers that get in the game. So that'll be like woohoo! So that'll be
cool. It sounds like a conspiracy. I don't really trust it.
Yeah. No, I like that conspiracy.
So yeah, that'll be exciting.
How about you, Steph? What you been playing?
So I had a ton of events this past weekend where I taught new board gamers. I was talking about that earlier on the Nerd Nighters show. Those of you that aren't familiar with the Nerd Nighters, I am a co-host on there with Andrew, JR, and Jason Hammer. Scott Alden also regularly appears. And that is right before this show at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to check that out, that is also a live video cast show where we talk about random topics. We're just all over. We're not as structured as this one, and I can say that because I'm a host. Meeple Serb's got it.
We like that.
Meeple Serb's got it organized. I bring chaos to the show, as you can tell. So I've been teaching a lot of new gamers. Really still trying to rally the community, get people involved, help facilitate, be there to sort of like iron out the creases of like social awkwardness of people that maybe want to go to an event but are kind of nervous about it, don't want to introduce themselves. So I kind of try and facilitate that, get people sit down with games that they might be comfortable playing, teach games, demo games. So I've been doing a lot of that. Also, my friends and I just opened up an escape room in Little Rock, Arkansas. What? Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of that, and so when we have downtime, when we're not thinking of puzzles at the escape room, we are playing board games in the back. So I actually just recently played Machikoro with the Harbor expansion, which I hadn't played yet. I had heard from a bunch of people that it really balances out Machikoro, because once you get the hang of building those specific engines, you kind of, everybody goes for that. So the Harbor expansion, instead of having all the cards available for purchase, it's sort of more drafting where you'll have only 10 cards available, well, 10 different types of cards available, because if you have duplicates, those will go out and you'll draw a new one. So, and then some new cards, a new, what do you call it, buildings that you have to build to win the game. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Man, that tuna boat.
Tuna's where it's at?
Yeah, those expansions definitely made that game. When they brought out the tin a couple of months ago,
the deluxe is great.
Yeah, like if they would have just brought that out, that game would have been like holy mackerel. But the way they did it, the first version was just like, yeah, you know, it's fun. But those expansions just boom, that game became so great with them.
And to give a plug, actually IDW will be one of the people from IDW, Nate Murray, will be on our show next week, so we can chat more about Machikoro and many other things, I'm sure. And then we'll also be having Boyan, I don't know how you say Boyan's last name, Radovich?
Yeah.
Close? No? Not even close?
That works. Eric
right.
is saying no. Erica's shaking his head.
Not even
no,
close.
The audience can't.
So on that note, let's use that as a way to introduce our guests.
Yeah. So we have some hidden guests. You guys might be familiar with at least one of them or both of them. But we have W. Eric Martin of BGG News and of all of the things board game. Hey Eric, welcome to the show.
They just have to unmute themselves.
Oh, yeah, just unmute your mic and then say hello and laugh at us for mispronouncing names. There you go.
Radakovich.
Radakovich, you were so close.
I wasn't. That for me?
That was like fantasy
close.
surname guessing is what that was. That was fantasy.
Yeah. It's probably not still accurate, but it at least has the right number of syllables.
Yeah, that's progress for me. And I don't know if anyone caught it, but Efka is actually from Pun Included, so we'll come around and ask them a little bit of what they do as well. But let's just jump right into the show, and I'm going to start us off just to give everyone kind of the big picture here. We're kind of looking at the year in review, and specifically trying to focus on which designers or design games kind of stood out this year. And first off, just to give some context, because I realize not all of us have played all games, I'm going to go to Eric, and then maybe Tyler can follow me up with Efka on this. But Eric, I'm curious, how many shows did you go to, and how many games did you get to play this year?
I think it was 8 shows on here. Spielwarenmesse, New York Toy Fair, Origins, Gen Con, Spiel, Tokyo Game Market twice. Twice, yeah. I think it was all. And I think at all of those shows combined, I might have played 20 games.
Or at the show. That's
yeah,
different.
you don't play anything at shows.
No, not at
least
shows.
I don't play anything at shows. So
You're too busy.
yeah, I play prototypes for filming things and all sorts of stuff like that.
How many games do you think you, just a guesstimate, had your hands on, though?
A lot.
Like,
I mean,
different.
I don't know. I think I did like 50 videos at Spiel.
I think he blacks out because I'll ask him, like at Gen Con, I'm like, you just tweeted about this game. Can you tell me more about that game? And he's like, Stephanie, I'm tweeting about all these games. Like, I've already forgotten that game and I've moved on to the next one.
Yeah, it's kind of
I'll
hard.
go back and review it whenever I do the blog.
Yeah, so I do these Gen Con previews and Spiel preview with hundreds and hundreds of games on them, and I edit the descriptions of almost all of them. Other people will make the listings, or I create all the listings. I edit all the descriptions. We put them all up there, and I have no idea what the games are. Like, it's just data passing through, and it gets on there, and I'm not thinking of it as a gamer. I am just thinking of how does the text flow and does it make sense?
Right.
Does this get across a message? I'm not imagining playing the game. So people are always like, hey, what are you looking forward to at Spiel? I'm just like, I don't even know what's coming out. So that's just kind of how it works there.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I totally understand where he's coming from. That not on that grand of a scale. Last Christmas, I hit a huge milestone in my personal collection of 200 games. I was like, oh my goodness, this was fantastic. And then January 19th, I started doing my overviews, and I've gone to, I think I'm at like 538. So getting like 300 odd games in a year, I'm just like, wow, I didn't even know I had this, and I got to learn that one day. So yeah, it does. It's like in one door, out the other, and it's like, but to our other guest, what was this? What was 2015 like for you?
Well, I went to a couple of shows. I went to UK Game Expo, I went to Escher Spiel, and I went to a little convention in London called Dragon Meet, which was kind of cool as well. And it was weird because that was like a role-playing game convention, but like there were so many people just like buying board games, and there were like a lot of vendors just selling board games, and it almost felt like role-playing games played like a kind of like a supplementary thing, supplementary part of the industry rather than like being all about it. And it was so bizarre, and just like seeing this, gaming thing completely overtake everything. And it was kind of cool, but surreal at the same time. And yeah, I'm really impressed with the games this year. Actually, I think I know people have been saying that, but it's like one of the best years for gaming in terms of innovation and what people are trying to do. Like, I feel like we're suddenly starting to feel like, yeah, this hobby is actually getting much bigger than it was before, and we are feeling like we are part of a big thing. And now people are going, okay, let's not just make like board games. Let's really, really try and innovate on them. And I'm not saying that that's not something that's been happening before, but I can really, really feel it this year, I think.
Awesome. So, Eric, if you could just name one, and if you can't, that's okay, but if there's just one game mechanic that you felt like was particularly innovative or creative that you felt stood out, and you can list maybe just one game that has this mechanic, or you can list several games, but you can say, I really found this interesting in 2015. What do you think? What do you think it would be?
I cannot do that.
So
I
have an experience with you that might give you one.
Okay. Yes, we played a game together that you seemed kind of enthralled with, but I generally don't think of the games in terms of mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, because mechanisms, not mechanics. But
We've had that argument on Twitter.
yeah, we've had that argument.
In quantum physics, mechanics is okay, but anyway.
Yeah. But it's not quantum mechanics.
This is the beauty and relationship of Eric Martin and Stephanie Straw. Everyone gets to see it now in live action.
I don't think of it that way. Like, I don't think like, man, I really want to play like a worker placement game, or I don't know. There's nothing that comes out like that. The only thing that's sort of close is trick taking, just because I love trick taking games. I love the variety. You know, everyone has to be like, it's trick taking, but with, you know, this, that, and the other, and these two things, or, you know, or whatever it is. But there was nothing like that that I can think of. I was trying to review. Yes, I haven't played Jiraku yet, Daryl. It seems pretty cool with the area control trick-taking thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
trick-taking with area control.
Yes. I mean, I was looking, you know, in preparation for the show, I was trying to go back through and see, like, what have I actually played, you know, through all this year. And it was kind of intimidating because you go in the Geek and you look, what came out in 2015, and we're going to exclude expansions, and there's more than 3,000 things listed.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And you're just like, how could you even process this? It's not even possible, I think, to physically play these games, you know, once, all the time. And, you know, if you had as much money in the world as you want.
I think what's true about that too, Eric, is because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of games, you might get to something in March, and it's like, oh wow, that actually came out 5-6 months ago. I didn't realize that wasn't a 2015 release. So things can get, just because they say, oh yeah, this came out in, you know, the first quarter. It's like, yeah, but I'm not going to see it till the 4th.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's stuff. I mean, so looking at best design games, one of the things, I don't know what format you guys have. One thing I had was Time Stories, which I know I've talked with Efka about before, and that, of course, I first played that in 2012.
Right. And you loved it then.
It's not a new game for me, and yet it's new. So
now everyone else can finally experience it.
Yeah.
So is that the innovative game that you think? Is that the 2015? Was that something that was like kind of unique for you? Time Stories?
It's funny because, of course, I played that. It was my favorite game I played at Spiel 2012, and then at Spiel 2013, and then at Spiel 2014.
Wow.
There was a play at Gen Con. It was my favorite experience at all of those conventions, and I couldn't really talk about it because it was still in development and getting prepared. And then Pandemic Legacy kind of stole their lunch.
Yeah.
You know, coming out at the same time, and has really trumped it. And yet those two kind of merge that same experience of a role-playing game in a board game, where you are creating this world and exploring this world, and you represent a character, and you go through and you find objects, and you know, move around this world, and different things happen to you. And I don't necessarily, I mean, I talk about best designed games, and I think those qualify mostly because those have been my favorite game experiences for like the past 4 years. So
I don't know that was really Pandemic Legacy's fault. It was more like Time Stories walked into the cafeteria with like new sneaks on, and everyone was like, Time Stories, like cool new shoes. But then Pandemic Legacy came in with like a boombox and rock music, and they were like, yeah! So I think they're both equally cool, but you know.
I am a huge fan of Time Stories, so.
It's just the thing, if it had come out a year ago, it would have had a year to shine on its own.
On its own, absolutely. But I think with more episodes to come, people will continue to discover and fall in love with Time Stories. That's my theory, at least. But I'm curious. I'm gonna pass this to Efka because I'm curious. Have you? And we've already brought up Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories. Do you have any experience with either of those games, and how are you feeling about those?
Both, actually, and it's quite a big subject on my mind right now, as we're sort of, me and Elaine are trying to narrow down our like game of the year. They are certainly both that are in contention because I like both of them a lot. But Time Stories has that. I mean, I loved it, and because like I have a creative writing degree, so I love any game that really involves a story, and I think it did that really, really well. But the weird thing about Time Stories was, like I was saying to my friend Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules, and he was like, he was really hyped up about it, but he couldn't play it just yet. He was waiting for his mini convention that he does at his home, and he was going to play it with friends. And then he sat down, and something happened to him that never happened to me in any of my playthroughs of Time Stories. But once he pointed it out, like it's like that thing that you can't unsee once you see it.
Yeah.
and that's the rules, right? And when I played the game, the rules, they did kind of crop up from time to time. Like, there were issues, but it didn't feel like they stopped me from playing the game. But their group was literally put on pause until they could figure it out, and they never did. And they had a lot of arguments over how they should proceed. Not in terms of the narrative, but literally in terms of how does this rule work? How does this other rule work? Well, it's not clear, and there's still no FAQ for it. So. That's kind of not cool, but I know Paul's been unofficially trying to collate everything on Board Game Geek and just have this proper FAQ so that if people do have that same problem as he does, then there is something there to help everyone out. So I think that's kind of cool. But I think Time Stories does quite a few things really, really well, and first of all, I'm a big fan of point-and-click adventure games, so that felt right at home. Some of my favorite games are Siberia and The Longest Journey, and I love playing those. It felt kind of like that, but different at the same time. It felt almost like a text-based adventure, but like a board game, and with visuals and really cool visuals actually. And I can't wait for the new expansion. Where is it, by the way? It was supposed to come out in December. There's no announcement or anything like that.
I believe January now. And March.
January, okay.
Well, it's at print. Under the Mask, I believe now is March. I handed in edits for that recently. I was involved with editing the rules for Time Stories. I can admit to fault on here. It's the problem, of course, where I have no idea what sort of blind testing they did after I handed over edits. I'm just literally editing for, how does everything flow? Does it make sense? Is it a good word choice?
Yeah, but that's not rules are not a one-person job. I've been involved in proofreading and stuff like that, and just seeing how many people put in input and use suggestions and how it flows and changes is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I can say they are working on a new edition. They're answering questions and trying to rewrite and draft and enter, doing things like that. And of course, it's the problem where, I had already played a bunch of times, and so I'm editing things, and I might not notice that things are missing that other people are going to know, because you kind of internalize what's going on there.
But yeah, I mean, I do kind of want to jump back a little bit to Pandemic Legacy as well, and because a lot of interesting things have been happening around that lately, namely it being number 3, then number 2, and then number 3 on Board Game Geek again. And there's a lot of discussion surrounding that. And I feel it's interesting because people are feeling so hyped up, and I feel like I'm having a completely different experience to everyone else, because everyone seems to have just powered through that game, I just started, I'm done, I'm finished, we played 5 games a night and we're done. And I'm just I'm on game 5 right now, and we play once every 2 weeks, and we play a game or maybe 2 games at best. And I was really digging everything that's going on, and I'm aware that I have to not talk about spoilers. I can't talk about Time Story spoilers. I can't talk about Pandemic Legacy spoilers.
No, and no Star Wars.
I've just been to see Star Wars. I'm literally just back from Star Wars.
Shush.
Yeah, no.
Asco might explode.
Just turn the mic off, put it on mute, and just say everything that you want to say. Just be like, blah, blah,
Darth
blah,
Vader
blah,
is
blah,
Luke
blah,
Skywalker's
No.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Tyler?
Yes, sir.
You're up next, bro.
Do you have a question for Eric? If not,
no.
I have one.
Oh, sure, go ahead, Steph.
I have one. So, yeah,
I don't know where Tyler is, but he's...
Eric, I know, bless his heart. So,
I don't know where I am.
He just woke up.
He did. He did just wake up 30 minutes ago, so we'll forgive him a little bit. So, Eric, the game that I was kind of talking about that I felt had a unique mechanism component was why first. And so that's a game that's interesting.
You are
It's
so
like,
obsessed with that game.
what?
You are so obsessed with that game. I think that's
I'm not.
every
I'm not
time you've
obsessed.
been on the show.
Have I really? Okay.
Maybe she is. Have you played it?
I have, yeah. I
No,
own it,
yeah,
and
you,
I played
played
it.
with Daryl.
No.
Yeah, well, yeah. After I played it with you at Origins with Daryl and Ladder and Chris Kirkman and I think Eric Handler. Gosh, who else was there? Maybe Brad Smoley. That was so long ago. That feels like ages ago. But yeah, so we played this game, and I just think it's a really interesting concept. You can think about being first in a game, and that is okay. Well, I can be second in a game just as easily. But it's so not like that, especially if you're trying to manipulate yourself and others in the position of the game for the round. There's, I forget how many rounds.
The summary, you play over 5 rounds.
Yeah,
Each
5
round
rounds,
you're playing cards, and you can play them in front of you or other people to manipulate tokens in a race. And whoever ends up in second place scores points equal to where they are on the track, which could be positive or negative.
Yeah.
Okay. The trick, though, is you're playing 5 rounds, and at the end of the 5th round, whoever has the second most points wins the game.
So this is my favorite thing to say after round 1, is when someone scores, and they're like all excited, I go, guess what? You're losing.
Oh, I played this game.
Yes. So everyone else is...
I played this game at BGG-Con, and I think the universal reaction... Yeah, it was with you, and I think the universal reaction was, I hate this game. Put this away.
That is so
I don't ever want to play this game again. Which was harsh.
Andrew Christopher Enriquez was teaching it incorrectly, was how the experience started out.
I totally blocked that game memory out.
It was also super late, but whatever. You know what? We all can't be Eric Martin and make people just love this game by playing this game.
Travis Chance was so angry. Every time he had to play a card, he would just throw it.
Yeah,
he would throw it
when
at
you
someone.
say everyone didn't enjoy it, that's really what you mean, is that Travis Chance did not enjoy that game. That's what you really mean.
Oh, I mean, if you're gonna be a jerk at the table and not play in the spirit of the game, you should probably go play something else and just excuse yourself and be done with it.
Nose.
I mean, what I like about it, I don't know if this is the same thing. The point is, it twists. Like, you don't even understand how it works at first.
Exactly.
And that thing, yes, when you tell someone at first, hey, you won that game, now you're losing.
Yeah.
And you immediately have to be like, what? And you're like, yeah, you have to get someone to score more points than you now in order for you to win.
Yeah.
And so you play a couple more rounds, and then the goal of everyone shifts. No one has a goal initially.
Yeah.
Well, usually first round, everyone's trying to win. And they don't realize what's going to happen.
Right.
But once you have a score after 3 or 4 rounds, now everyone's shooting. They've got these windows.
Yeah.
I need to land on the 3 to 5 space and win in order to get that many points and move into second place.
I think it was a very innovative scoring concept.
Yeah.
The player control / urgency was a little
it's not there.
Chaotic, but not a bad thing because it's a quick game. So, but some people were very turned off by the chaos, which already Stephanie Straw has communicated that she is the chaos. So obviously,
I'm a tornado.
She's gonna love chaos. So
different taste in games.
Absolutely, which is a good thing. That's why we have multiple people to listen to. And on that note, Tyler?
Yes, Efka, I have a question for you. Speaking of different people, different games, what were some of the games that you felt maybe made an impression, maybe a certain style of game really shone this year, took the spotlight away from other things?
Yeah, so I think this is definitely the year of like a story or narrative-driven games, or as Pandemic Legacy calls itself, sort of cinematic games. But I think the other thing that's been happening lately, on sort of the other side of the pond, if you will, is how Eurogames are starting to innovate on how their mechanics relate to the actual theme that they're doing, because we're all quite used to sort of dryish Euros where the theme is kind of there, but it's not necessarily the strongest aspect. I'm really like riding high on the Portuguese designer wave, where you have Vitor Lacerda and then the Nuno Bizarro Santiago and the Paulo Soledad team, and it's been kind of there in Panamax last year, and I was really impressed with Nippon and how it kind of like took this like an idea that we kind of see in board games. It's a historical period in a certain country, but they really built the mechanics on that. They kind of looked at the history and what was happening at that time in Japan, and they went, okay, this is how Nippon's going to work. And you don't often see that sort of top-down design in Euro games. And then I was kind of expecting a lot from the Gallerist, actually, because I played Kanban and I really enjoyed how it worked. And after that, I was like, all right, is the Gallerist going to follow that up? And it really did. It really felt like like a really, really solid Euro game, very heavy, incredibly heavy. It does have the problem of sort of like you need to play it once to actually even like kind of understand what's going on. But the mechanics felt like really thematic and really there. And there's that one bit sort of to the side of the board where it's kind of like a separate track that didn't feel very thematic, and I think a number of reviewers already mentioned that.
I'm sorry. Are you talking about Richard Garfield's new game? Oh, I'll go on about that later.
Oh God, Richard!
I just didn't get the troll track in Treasure Hunter. Didn't need to be there, but go on.
I just played that this Sunday, actually, and it was really bizarre. I didn't know what to think of it. It was kind of all right. It was a bit random, a bit light, but it didn't kind of go on for too long and didn't outstay its welcome for me. But the troll track thematically, that was kind of it's just like. Oh, by the way, there's trolls as well.
And you need dogs. Just wholesome dogs.
But the other half of the game I really enjoyed. I loved it, and then it was like, what? I mean, you could play it without that in there, I suppose.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think sometimes when you make these sort of slightly more abstract games, you kind of make a game and then you realize it doesn't quite work, and you need to adjust something. You need to add something a little bit to make it work better mechanically. But then you've already got you've got the thematic concept, so you just need to kind of tack that on and make it cohesive. And I'd rather have that. Yeah. I'd rather have that, that little tacked on bit than not have the game work.
Absolutely. We got another cameo, another guest on the show.
Oh.
This is Gidget. Gidget loves Y first.
Yeah.
So
you have a question, or just Gidget?
No, I think you're asking Eric a question, right?
Me. You're absolutely right, which is perfect, because I wanted to ask a question to Eric. Eric, and not getting into the whole mechanical conversation, but this idea, and Efka said it, kind of drier games versus, highly, thematic games. If we could use that divide, is there a game in each of those categories that you got to play? Not saying it's the best game, but for you this year, from your personal experience, was there, like a Blood Rage or a Mombasa? Was there, from one kind of extreme to the other of kind of drier style versus maybe more thematic?
No.
Nothing stood out for you on either end of the spectrum.
I mean, we already mentioned.
He says.
And time stories. It's funny hearing Efka talk about Nippon and Kanban and you can go on the other ones, and I have played none of those.
No, you haven't played Nippon or Gallerist?
I have zero interest in that stuff.
Oh, there's zero interest. And why is that? That's a good question then.
Why? It's funny. Think about it. I think it's because I got a 6-year-old, and I used to play stuff like Age of Steam, and it'd be great, and we'd play again and play again. But you need to play it many times to sort of internalize this game.
Right.
My first time at Age of Steam was my first railroad game ever, and I built like these 2 separate circuits, having no idea what I was doing, and so of course I got crushed.
Right.
But all these games now, I know that I will not be playing them lots of times.
Fair.
And if I'm gonna only play it once, I don't want to do that. I want to play something else that I will probably play again multiple times and really get more out of.
All right.
Maybe
All right.
when my son's a bit older, we'll have
Yeah,
time.
then maybe those. So maybe okay. So let's salvage the question then. Was
Yeah.
there a shorter game that you really enjoyed?
I mean, there's tons of games I enjoy. I mean, the game that sort of, I was looking through the list here of like what stands out as the thing I point to as the most interesting in terms of actually playing, and it was Codenames.
A classic.
And it was mostly because the system is dirt simple.
Yep.
Right? We play it all the time. You play it as an opener. New people come in at night, and you just have a chair.
Yep.
If they don't know the game, it doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
They just jump in the middle. You explain as you're doing it, and beyond that, the more interesting thing is that it is open, and you can be as creative as you want with it. It is totally up to the players, and the players drive that in the game. And the game is open to you being innovative and creative with what you're doing within that framework.
We played a version at BGGCon where we had to give clues as board game titles.
Right.
And then I've seen people play using
Cards Against version.
Using Dixit cards.
Yeah.
Use
I've seen people play with Cards Against.
Cards Against Humanity cards. You can do charade names. You can. It's amazing how open that system is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just kind of magical that you have this simplicity of design.
Very elegant.
And it pops. I mean, I don't think I'm revealing anything that I shouldn't hear. But talking with Peter Mermack from Czech Games Edition beforehand, he was like, I kind of really like this game. I'm not sure if I've ordered too much. And, of course, boom, sold out just instantly. And he was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's so different from their other titles.
You can't, you can't guess, it's if you like Through the Ages, you'll just breeze right into Codenames.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
I know, you're looking at like games and Dungeon Pets and Space Alert and this thing off in the corner over here that's, where'd that come from? But
great designer, great diversity.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always feel like all of Lodge's games are very different. I don't really ever feel like Tashkalar is very similar to Galaxy Trucker.
Yeah.
No, but it's not similar, but more complex. Like with Galaxy Trucker, you have to remember what these 8 types of tiles do when you're doing it. Or Dungeon Pets, it's what each thing that you're going to choose, and this, it's all this stuff sort of that you have to remember and internalize. And that gets back to like me not playing Nippon and stuff, is because you have to remember that as opposed to just a couple of rules that you can just you play off of and flow. And this one is almost nothing.
Eric, what you said really kind of echoed with me. Sorry, I'm just going to butt in for like a second. But we had this board game club that I started at work very recently, like just when Codenames came out, and it was the first night, and we had about 12 people in at the time, and I said, why don't we just play Codenames as an icebreaker, because everyone can play at the same time. And as we started playing, more people started coming in, so then we had 13, 14, 15, 16, and eventually 17. And everyone's just joining into that one game of Codenames, and whether they played board games or haven't, they just perfectly slot into there, and it was just awesome. I really, really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah.
What I do for my standard is because pretty much all of us here are professional board gamers. We're going to play anything and everything just to see what's in the market, what's going on. I'll sit there and play Agricola, I'll play Lagrange, I'll play Kingsburg, but something like Codenames will come out, or Rolling America, and if I can take it to my neighbor's mom and sit there and play it with her, and she's like, wow, I just really, really enjoyed that, it was a lot of fun, and I'm like, okay, you know what? This one's going to stay on the shelf, because even though it's not my woohoo, I love that, it's awesome, I can still take it somewhere and people are going to enjoy that game and it's still going to be fun for them.
So, Efka, have you seen any, aside from the games that we've already mentioned, have you seen anything that was a really unique theme that stuck out to you? Some like cool game idea or something? If not, I have a different question. A backup.
Yeah, I guess I kind of did. I do tend to like play a lot of Euros, so you know, not much. But I remember when I actually met Daryl at Spiel this year. We were wandering around Hall 1, and we stopped by Ludi Creations, and I picked up, and then we held hands because of course I saw Richard's video, and it looked really interesting. And eventually the artist, I keep blanking her name right now, I drew like a little doodle on the back of the box, and it looks wonderful actually. And yeah, it had a really cool theme of like breaking up and, you know, kind of finding that emotional balance and maybe staying together at the end, maybe not staying together. And it was a fairly abstract game, and what I liked about it is how the abstract nature of it. It did kind of come through thematically, because there's this thing about board games. I think like they're just like anything else. They're like films, like you know, plays or whatever, or books. You know, everything is abstract, right? Everything is abstract. All those things are abstract. It's the job of whoever's making that thing to kind of make you suspend disbelief. You know. And I think it's just the same as in films, just the same as in board games. And I think what that game did really well was made you do that. You do kind of see the theme coming through from the mechanics or mechanisms, whatever. But the problem with And Then We Held Hands was that the rules were so awful. It didn't work at all, actually, in the end, because we got to the end bit, and because of how ambiguous the rulebook was, we didn't actually know whether we won or lost the game. And
You held hands.
Yeah, I mean, it's important in your heart. That's really all that matters.
Yeah, that's very true.
Hey, we passed germs. That's what they were going to call the game, but...
But yeah, I liked it, even though maybe, I don't know, some people are going to look at the theme and go, oh, well, it's just a bit, you know, and others are going to go, oh yeah, that's really cool. I really liked it, and I like when board games do that. Last year there was another like 2-player card game that kind of, again, had a very similar theme. It was called Ravens of Free Sahasri, I think, and it was a Bond brand release, and so you can't buy it basically. Because they never re-released it in US. But I actually quite like that game.
Osprey Games is doing it.
Ooh.
Oh, are they? Fantastic.
Nice.
See, this is why we need just Eric on every show.
Fact checker.
It's due out in May 2016 with the original art.
Oh, right. Okay, that's awesome. The art was really, really good in that game. And it's a similar kind of theme to And Then We Held Hands, because you kind of have to intuit what the other player is trying to think and what they're trying to do, and it's a 2-player card game, cooperative, so you have to play off of each other, and just like And Then We Held Hands, players can't talk about the game, and I thought that was pretty cool.
What was the name of that one again for our audience?
The Ravens of Free Sahasri, I believe. That's how you pronounce it. I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Eric, I have a question for you.
Wait, before you do that, I'll follow up with one other thing. You mentioned, okay, Ravens is actually designed by Kuro. The publisher, his brand is Manifest Destiny. And so we mentioned odd, well-designed games. I'm not sure if this game is well-designed or not yet, because I have no idea how to even grasp what I'm doing in it. But the game released, it's actually out in 2013. And so there's new releases that doesn't really qualify for 2015, but it's a solitaire game where you have to decide how you're going to spend your last 7 days. And it's got this whole weird card manipulation thing where you're trying to build this branching path of cards which represent the different possible events that you do in your life, where you've got special powers on the cards and on the locations that you're visiting that are going to have special powers depending on whether certain characters show up at those locations. But each turn, you decide at random how many cards to put onto 2 locations without looking at them. So you don't know who's going to show up there yet. But you can risk big and put more characters, but then something may happen depending on that, something on that. And you
Sounds
have to,
like soloing the Grizzled.
it's crazy. You have to survive for 7 days, and if you do, you can then chart a path along those 7 days of 1 card each for each day, but you must have people who are not lower in value than the higher ones that have come before, or else you have to cut those people off. And, society has just ended before you even reach that day. But if you make it through the week, you can play again, and you can upgrade cards that happen through the week.
My mind is just blown.
Yeah. So it's like it's a maybe legacy game.
Well, design, there's something interesting there. So,
and then you roll a 100-sided die, and if it's over 48, you get to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's weird. I mean, it's almost like a video game that you're playing through, because I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what I'm even supposed to be doing in order to get this goal. But it's not even getting to the goal right here. It's just sort of what's going to happen. I don't even know. It's this crazy world I'm in, and I'm going to see what comes out of it. And I don't know. So you're getting into this best designed game.
Yeah.
And that's often what I look for, like with a Why First, that upends what you're even thinking about with a game. It's not this combination here. I just wrote an overview of this game, The Waltzing Cat, which is posted today. It's a super simple deduction game that you don't even see how it works first or how you're even supposed to play it. It's very simple. I mean, all it is 11 double-sided blocks. That's it. And you're just trying to make pairs by pushing or pulling to reveal an image on there. You play against one other person. I've played it like, I don't know, 7 or 8 times now, and I don't even understand strategy. I have no idea. Like, you've got these weird inklings, but it's not gelling. Like, it's just this totally other experience. And
there's a designer out there going, this is going to drive people crazy. I'm going to make it.
Yeah, it's part art project, because you are trying to, in a sense, just make people think differently, right? It's something here. It's not, so Pandemic Legacy has this cool experience, and yet it builds on what's come before, and you get all this awesome thing. So it's something familiar. All right, but then this, I don't even know how to approach it. So it's interesting, though. That's kind of what I like with games. Is I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't know.
Are you talking about the game or the show? Oh.
Yeah.
We don't know. None of us know what we're doing here. We don't know what we're doing.
So my question for you, Eric, was going to be, what with 2015 coming to a close, what did you play 2-3 years ago that you're finally looking forward to coming out in 2016?
What's your new Time Stories?
That's a brilliant question.
My new Time Stories is still Time Stories, because I actually have not played the published game yet. Because I was playing, I've got these 2 guys I love playing games with, and we did Legacy, Pandemic Legacy together. And that's really, I mean, it's funny how much Legacy is geared, like, it stacks the deck, because you want to play it with the same people, and I'm going to play with people I like. I'm not just going to play with some random people at the game store, because I have to commit to this. And so you're already, with people that you've bonded with and you enjoy, and it's already like escalating the game because you're approaching it from sort of angle. I don't remember what your question was, but that was totally stacking the deck.
That's a good point you made too, though. Because sometimes the game doesn't matter; it's who you're playing with.
Yes, and Pandemic escalates that, because it's this shared experience where now the world is collapsing around you, and you have each other's back, and how are you going to do this, and you have all this experience. I can't even. We're gonna have to do like a show where you can totally spoil everything, so then you can talk
spoiler
about
show,
Oh,
and then
that would be great.
all the spoiler show.
We need a spoiler show.
Yeah, we will do a spoiler show, and then you can come back and spoil everything.
That's right.
Can I spoil Star Wars?
No.
Probably never. Probably
don't make me cut you
never.
from this.
That's right.
They'll be upset.
Actually, my next question is to Efka.
I actually did have an answer.
Oh,
Now that
an
I
answer?
thought-
No.
And I remember Tyler's question
That'll be
here.
great.
Okay.
So what's funny is I have not played the published version of 504 yet.
Ooh.
I played the prototype. It was April 2014, because That's where Friedemann was showing at the Gathering,
Yep.
and I tried one there. And we talk about best design games. Now, I know a lot of people say that the individual games are not that interesting. I don't know about this. I don't know about this. And problem where you play something once and you pass judgment on it, and you're just like, I wash my hands of this.
Yes.
And you don't go back to it, to see what it's actually like. Now that you have played it and you internalize what the game is like, and you play it again, right? You have to sort of meet the game halfway sometimes in order for it to be a success. You can't just be like, I'm going to play, this thing did not work how I expected it to work. This sucks, right? You have to meet the game halfway and play in its own terms. And I don't know whether that's happened or not, but I think 504 is one of the best designed games of 2015 simply because of this being a crazy experiment by Friedman to make this work. And he's been working on this for 3 years, and it's out, and it's just this bizarre system, right, that's an experiment in its own way to see whether he could even do it. And here it is. And you can go out and explore these different worlds and try these different things. And I'm fascinated just by his mind to make that work. And I'm curious to see sort of what comes from that. So.
Yeah, no, that I really appreciate you saying that, Eric, because I think that is a perfect example of kind of what this whole show this episode is about. Is something where it was really about the design challenge or whatever came out of it. And like you mentioned, Friedman's been working on this for a long time, trying to put this system together. And now we'll actually he's kind of unleashed designers as well, because you get to somewhat set some of the parameters and then explore the game. So I think I was amazed by that design challenge and that he pulled it off and played so many and simulated so many and hasn't killed himself. So that's a feat in itself that we didn't lose him to this game and the madness. So I'm gonna bounce back actually to Efka. I'm curious, out of the games you played, you've already mentioned a few designers, especially the Brazilian designers that you've really enjoyed. Portuguese, my apologies. But I'm curious if you see any newer designers or designers that seem to have a really good year. Any designers that stand out to you where you're excited about what they will design, just in general, that they're kind of on your radar now, and they came on your radar in 2015.
Yeah, so I forgot his name, which is really embarrassing.
really left an impression on you.
And between all of us, especially Eric, then we should figure it out.
Yeah, but it's 5 a.m. here, so please forgive me, and I haven't slept yet. But yeah, it's the guy who designed Forge War, and he had a new Kickstarter out as well this year called Gloomhaven. Everyone's blanking this. Okay, so
you're safe. I mean, all was blanked.
Yeah, so Isaac Childers, I believe. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Yeah, so Gloomhaven looks really cool and kind of rides that wave of legacy games. But I think it finally takes what I want from a legacy game and puts it in a game, because I think, okay, so I'm going to try to be as vague as possible about Pandemic Legacy, and also consider the fact that I have not finished Pandemic Legacy yet, right? But what felt to me was lacking in that game, and I'm not in no way saying that it is any kind of a design fault or a negative towards Pandemic Legacy, but I wanted something which is things that happen based on my decisions rather than anything else, and there is that sort of, but also not. So I'm going to put a stop to that there. But it feels like there is definitely that happening in Gloomhaven, because it is a dungeon crawler, but it has legacy elements. So, for example, you'll have a character that you're playing, but it is not so much your character. It's simply just a guy that is living in this world, and his job just happens to be adventuring, and they have their own goals, and based on what happens to them, that's how the game is sort of going to progress in terms of the legacy aspect of the game, right? And I think that's just the coolest element ever. And what I really want to see is a game that actually responds to me in my decisions. And I haven't gotten that so much yet. A little bit out of Time Stories, but this looks like it's going to be the one. Hopefully, I think Tyler just disappeared.
I got a cat attacking my feet.
That's right. You're still awake. Davio has talked about that. I mean, how essentially you have to have bumpers for Pandemic Legacy to from veering too far off the track. I know he's talked about the same thing with Seafall, where something in Game 1 will then affect Game 5, and things will go nuts then. So now you got to go back to Game 1 and figure out how to keep the borders in place.
Although Echo is more of that, so the ecosystem is going to be more translation from game to game and affecting your choices. And actually, Stephanie just interviewed Brad Pitt himself before the show.
I may or may not have called Rob Davio the Brad Pitt of board game design.
I want to be the skeleton active with board games then.
That's right.
Okay, so my question to Eric. So, Eric, just pretend that the internet isn't watching right now, okay? This is just you and me.
Uh-huh.
What game that you can talk about should I be looking for? Because you know me. Every game that you've taught me, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I like a Bluxen.
Right.
I like Why First. I mean, Why First is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. But I like it for what it is. But you know me. So what game would you say, Stephanie, this is the game that you're going to talk about on Meeple Syrup every time that they have you on the show?
That's hard. I was looking over my list here for other things that I chose for design games for me, from what I want, and so I don't know if they.
Well, let's just assume that
make a guess.
Is the same as what Stephanie wants.
Yeah.
So you mentioned card games, right? With the Bluxen and Why First.
Yeah.
You got the manipulation here, and all four of these were card games. I don't know if you played Tides of Time.
Yep. You also told me about that one. Yeah.
Arboretum.
I have not played that one.
Okay. Dead Drop.
I have played that.
And Hack Trick.
I have not played that.
Okay, so Hack Trick, you mentioned designers, Tyler mentioned designers that you want to watch. Designer of Hack Trick also designed this abstract game Six Making, which Blue Orange Games is coming out with it as Six for next year. And both of them are phenomenal minimalist designs. And Hack Trick is all about you trying to make 3 in a row on a little grid. But it's all about the cards that you have, where the card that you play is summed with the card that was previously played to occupy a space on that.
Oh, I love it already.
So what your opponent played or what you played if they skipped a turn and actually draw. And
I'm gonna rock this game so hard.
It's
I am. I'm just
tiny little game, 18 cards. He had a version at Spiel now that had like bonus cards. I haven't even looked at those yet to see what that's are. But it's this great design. And Six Making was actually a different take on chess, which was
whoa.
I know people want to do that, but this worked where on a turn you either put a pawn of your color on this 5x5 grid, and it counts as a pawn. So
I played this game. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's going to come out by Blue Orange.
Blue Orange is doing it.
Yes, I played that at BGG Con.
Yes.
Brilliant game.
Yes. So
why didn't you immediately come to me with this game, Daryl?
Well, because you were busy.
I was busy teaching Why First to Travis Chance, who hated it.
That's right. Well, that was his fault. But
totally. Those are good calls.
I'll do the 1-minute description.
Yes.
Pawn on a board, and token moves as a pawn. Okay. If you land on something else and make a stack of 2, it now counts as a rook, and moves as a rook. And you get a stack of 3, it's a knight. 4, it's a bishop. 5, it's a queen. And if you make 6, whoever is on top of the stack of 6,
Wins.
which is the king, wins the game. And the trick is,
man.
though, you can move any stack.
Yeah.
And
They
you
can
can
combine.
separate a stack to move only part of it. So you got a stack of 4 here. Well, I can move the whole thing as a bishop, or I can move the top 3 as a knight, or I can move the top 2 as a rook.
I love it.
And
Yeah, it blew
I
my
like it.
mind.
I like
Yeah,
it.
that was a fantastic game. Great recommendation. I actually sadly forgot that I played it, but at the time it was incredible. And I also got to mention for Hack Trick, the reason it was on my radar was, again, Odd Hack Welder had to have a game that had hack in the name, so he forced me at Essen to go pick up a copy. I have not played it yet, but now I'm excited. So
I do have almost every game with straw in it, so I can understand that.
right, exactly. It's not every day that you see the word hack in the name of a game, so I understand and respect that. But Tyler, you got a question?
Yes, Afka, what are you pursuing hotly? Oh, no, that's not the question. Hot pursuit, what, something? I'm asking you a question about something.
This is not the After Dark show, Tyler.
We did go past midnight in our area, but
True.
Yeah. So I guess the game I'm sort of pursuing right now is Mombasa, because I got late on the hype train for Mombasa, and everyone that I know just kind of keeps raving about it and how good it is. And Vital Lacerda said, like, must buy for 2015, and I kind of respect his opinion. And Paul from Gaming Rules was also like Mombasa, and then Heavy Cardboard were like Mombasa, and Daryl's holding Mombasa. And so, yeah, I'm just, oh, wow. Oh, that's impressive.
that's the wooden version.
Yeah, did you buy that at Essen?
I had it shipped because that was the only way I was going to get my own stuff.
Okay, that's really cool. I actually was expecting to get it today, and was hoping to like learn the rules and everything. But then the postman just kind of put this, the little note saying you weren't in, like literally when I was in the corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I found the keys, I was like, all right, the postman's gone with my Mombasa, and so I was running through the door after him, but I couldn't find him. So that I was literally in hot pursuit. Yeah.
Nice segue.
I know, right?
that
So I have
qualifies as pursuit, I think.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Literally.
That's when you
Seems
leave.
trivial.
You leave Trivial Pursuit, out in the sun in Florida for too long. That's what it becomes.
All right, we each have time for maybe one last question. So I'm gonna, am I Stephanie? Yes.
Can I want to mention something. I don't want to
Please.
ask these guys anything.
Please mention.
No,
We're not doing
I
an
have-
after show, so we're going a little long because we started
Yeah.
late, and we're not
This is
doing
quick.
an after show.
This
So
is quick. So I have one. This is the one thing that I thought was cool and innovative. I pre-ordered some games from Essen and got some games from Nicholas at Nicholas Co on Twitter. Nicholas, they're wonderful. Thank you, Nicholas. I got Haru Ichiban, and that game is cool because, for one, it's abstract strategy, which I
it's
love.
the faces.
I love abstract strategy. Nope, this one is lily pads
Oh,
and
yes,
flowers.
yes.
And what's cool about this game, and this is not necessarily innovative, but I think it's really neat, and why not add this flair if you can, but the game is actually contained within itself. It's not actually in a box or anything. It's wooden, and it fits together, and there's a little, like a stretchy piece of, coated rubber band that goes around it and covers it so that it holds it all together. But it looks beautiful. Haru Ichiban, HARUICHIBAN. So go look that up on Board Game Geek. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it's just, I really like it whenever abstract strategy games normally look pretty boring, like black and white, simple colors, whatever, not a lot to it. But I'm totally fine with that because it's about the gameplay. But it was nice to have something that was gorgeous to look at, and also I'm kind of trying to think, like, what do I want to do with these lily pads? It's really cool, and it's a two-player game, and it's super easy to set up too, which that's convenient, and really portable, which I'm finding more and more important these days. So that's what I wanted to mention.
Unfortunately, that was the sexy version out in 2014, and in 2015 they had a less expensive, paper box, non-wooden edition.
Well, I am glad that I got the sexy version then.
Just when you mentioned something there, Stephanie, a light went on in my head, and I don't know if any designers out there have done this, but if you want to be really innovative, design a game where the punch-out sprue has to be kept and used in the game.
Don't use my stuff. We talked about this.
That would be such a great idea.
That was like my go-to design strategy for the longest time, and everyone from Game Artisans of Canada has told me that I was a garbage collector. So
No. You got to. So you punch it out, but you actually have to keep it because it's involved in the game.
I know.
That could be cool.
I use the Castles of Burgundy punch-outs and designed a game with those.
It has to be a good game so the idea works and everyone goes, wow, that's fantastic, because otherwise they're going to be like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I mean, I use the cacao punch-outs because all the components will fall out of them.
I glued them all together, and then I printed off the game cover and put it on top, and then everything fits in there. It was awesome. It was really nice.
A lot of people have done that. I still love cacao. Love you. Still love you, cacao.
Yeah.
Cacao has an expansion coming out, and the cardboard, you can fold it so it holds everything in.
There was a Wizards of the Coast game where it literally said in the rulebook, like, take the punch board and put it underneath the insert because then it'll be flush. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that is definitely.
You can't do that in cacao though, because the insert is weld, so you have to keep it on. It has to be on top.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we wrap up this episode, I'm gonna throw a question. Who am I to? I'm gonna go to Efka. I'm curious if there was any games just as we wrap up that we didn't talk about that you'd like to shine a little bit of light on. Either you thought it was under the radar, or we just didn't get around to talking about it that you'd like to highlight before we wrap up. And then Stephanie and Tyler will have one question each, and we'll call it a night.
I know. I guess since we are talking about innovative games, we didn't. Maybe Blood Rage. That was an interesting one in terms of. I did expect quite a lot from it actually because I really like drafting and I don't mind area control at all. And I like the minis and all that kind of stuff, but it was weird because it's not really normally the sort of game that I go for.
Right.
And then I played it, and I thought it didn't quite work actually, which was bizarre. And I'm not sure if that's everyone's experience because I think all the reviews have been really positive on it so far. And I like the idea behind it. I like the idea that you can take drafting, and and you feel area control with that. And I thought that was really cool. I just didn't think the drafting part of the game worked because there's an infinite problem with drafting games where, like, if you take something in your first round of drafting and you go into a certain strategy, because, like, drafting is all around, inherent strategies within that set of cards or whatever it is you're drafting tiles. And then someone in round 2 of drafting goes into your strategy because they open up something that looks really good and they're like, I'm having that, And in other games, it's not necessarily like a big problem because, like, someone mentioned Treasure Hunter. I think it was Tyler. It doesn't matter so much if someone's tried to muscle in on your strategy or whatever. It's just a really quick game, and the drafting is the big part of the game. Whereas in Blood Rage, it felt like, okay, so if someone muscles in on my strategy, everything I've built up, in that area control part of the game, that's it. I'm done for. I'm out of the game. I was kind of let down by that, I think, a little bit. But I still enjoyed the game. I didn't think it was a bad game or anything like that. But it was bizarre. But I still appreciate it for what it is, and that it takes drafting, fuels area control. I really like that idea.
And Stephanie, why don't you wrap up with a question to Eric, and then Tyler can close back with Efka, and I can give everyone an update for next week.
Eric, what is the one thing that you would like to, if you had a bevy of board game designers and you were like, it would be neat if you had a game like this. What is your one idea that you would like for game designers, your inspiration to game designers to go forth and create this game for you?
It would probably be along the lines of William Burroughs creating fiction.
It's called the cut-ups.
If people, yes, you're going to do a cut-up. I don't know if you know the cut-ups, that he'd do that, where he would sort of take things and cut up different, pieces of literature, and you put them together, and you sort of see what comes out of that. Do it different ways and figure out what things work.
So you want them to do that with literature, or you want them to do that with, like, board games?
Yes.
They can do them all.
Isn't that 504? That's just 504, isn't it? That's literally what it is,
It's a little bit 504.
It's a little bit 504, but it's along the lines of, you talk about the innovative things that you want here. Again, I talk about, I like what I don't understand, or at least I want to explore it more, or I find that interesting. And there's lots of stuff where it's a good game, and you can see, this works really well, everything's fine, and yet it's still like a Frankenstein's monster of, these other 3 games, or these other parts that are sort of assembled together, and you can apply the skills that you learn in this one deck building game onto another deck building game, onto another deck building game, and yeah, they have their twists and all, but it's kind of the same feel of game. And I'm fine with things that might not necessarily work, right? And I play that. I play a lot of Japanese games where I don't know if they're working, or I just have no idea what the game is supposed to play like. You just go through this thing, and so again, it's talking about meeting the game halfway, where you move into the world of the game. And I wrote about this a long time ago, about people playing Galaxy Trucker. After the first game, they're making all these suggestions on how to fix it. And I'm just like, you have just played this once. You have no idea. Like, now that you have played it once, you have to incorporate that experience into what you do when you're actually building your ship, right? Or, look at the cards to see what's... No one looked at the cards, but they had all these complaints because it was totally random and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, you didn't do the things that you're allowed to do in the game, right? And you have to build that, and you'll learn that experience. I don't know. That's why I get the cutout is, is you're putting things together, and you say, like, I did not expect to make something along these lines. And so that's what I find interesting. So yeah. I'm looking at your shelf there, Daryl, when you were in the background for the moment. And I'm just pulling things together like bomb wasabi.
Wasabi.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's just like designing through box titles.
Yeah, or something like that, where you're just, you're pulling things out. You can, I know there's tools on Google you can go on where you just like pull up random words or phrases. Yeah. Lots of times it's nonsense.
Maybe there's some kind of reverse engineer of code names.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's magic, and it just triggers something in your head. And if anyone's read The Library of Babel from Borges, that's what I'm thinking. Lots of times it's nonsense, but then sometimes it's just you get this combination you didn't expect. And I think I could do something with that. And it sort of bypasses the whole nonsense about do you start with themes or mechanisms or whatever. You start with whatever you want.
Right.
You don't have to, it's not an either or. It's sort of influence from everywhere coming in and can become a game.
Wow. Eric's going meta on us.
Right?
Yeah,
I did. I just tweeted this recently where I had a dream in September about a design called Metagame, where people are game designers who are designing games within the game, and it's sort of a 504 system,
right?
Where you will be for this game, we're going to use the tile laying module and the the area control module and do this, but within a game that other people play.
Do you think that's a little bit why people like Legacy? Is because they're feeling a game-making moment in the game?
It could be. I mean, it's also fun just because it's a toy and you get it's a present, so you get to open, right? You know, that's fun. You get to draw on things. I mean, people shitting themselves because they have to rip up a card. It's just like, whatever, rip up a card. You know? I mean, it's no big deal to actually do that because you can always get another card, you know, if you really want.
Some of us are destructive, Eric.
What?
I have 500 things to reply. So first of all, you can't get upset with people because I really like ripping up cards, by the way, but you can't get upset with them because it's a survival instinct, you know, like because of laws of entropy, we as human beings naturally try to push that back as far as possible, you know. So for us, hoarding, and I really hate hoarding, but hoarding is a survival mechanism. But anyway, aside from that, I do have an example of a game that is basically what you're mentioning, and it's actually there's this event that was organized a couple of times in leisure games in London by this guy called Sean Buckley, and he did this thing called literally hacking games. It was indie role-playing games rather than board games, but they did things like they took 2 Fiasco playsets, and one was like Dragon Slayers or something like that, where you killed the dragon and now you have the horde and you have to split it, and the other was like Westminster politics, right? And so they just kind of glued those bits together, and we actually sat down and played that playset, and we ended up things with like a sentient race of Labrador. Someone like was literally a character representing the entire sentient race of Labradors, and someone else was sentient soup, like Campbell's soup. They were called We Are Campbell, and they were like nanobots that were soup, and it was just wonderfully brilliant. But because you mentioned William Burroughs, I challenge everyone, and whether you're viewing or on the show, there's this thing called the Cut-Ups on YouTube, which is a film that William S. Burroughs lent his voice to and his likeness. And I can't remember who the director was, Anthony Balk, I think. And it's only a 20-minute long film, and you can find it on YouTube. And I challenge you to watch the entirety of that film. And if you can, I owe you a pint. But I know so many people that utterly miserably failed at doing that. Yeah, but I love innovative fiction, and I love stuff like Cutting Up and Ulipu. There's another thing people can look up, and which is actually games theory within literature, like making literature into a game. So why can't a game be literature?
I love it. I love it. Oh man, such good stuff.
What you just described.
Come in, Eric.
What FK just described here, it's game design improv.
Right.
That is what you're.
That's what it is. That's what you're looking for. You're craving.
Yeah,
genre.
But then it takes a little while to design the actual game, but you know.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So we have just birthed a potential genre, and while talking about innovation and great games of the year and a variety of things, I just want to say thank you to Stephanie for coming in and covering for Sen, and we just always love when you're here. Anyone who didn't notice that Tyler had to go, he recently just got an evening job, so sometimes he may just disappear very quickly because he has to go to work, and money is a good thing, so we very much encourage him to show up to work on time. I want to say thank you to our guests, both Eric and Efka. Again, as always, a pleasure. Very thankful that you both were willing to come on the show, both very humble but wise people in the industry that I appreciate any excuse I get to talk with both of you. So the game, there's a nice plug. Not only is this a perfect plug, do you want to say something about that, Eric?
No, I just good design games. I forgot. I've played this thing 70 times so far. So
this is a perfect.
Repeatedly, I play it repeatedly solo.
Perfect segue because
we need an app.
I got to play that game with the head of the jury for the Spiel des Jahres. Had a really great conversation with Tom about why that game stood out, and I'm excited that next week we will have Nate Murray from IDW, who acquired the game in North America and is the company behind trying to get that out there to more people, because for some reason a lot of people don't know about it, even though
Because it looks boring.
It looks
It
boring,
does.
and yet it's a really beautiful, elegant game that could really fit in everyone's collection. So I'm sure we'll talk about that and some other games we have also. Eric, why don't you say Boyan's last name for me?
Radakovich?
Thank you. We'll be on the show, and we'll also talk a little bit about themed games. IDW known for a lot of licensed products, but also with Christmas coming up, Boyan has a Christmas game called 12 Days, which we'll chat about that and other themed games, holiday themes, or a variety of different themes. So please check us out next week. We'll have a wonderful show with them. And keep making great games. We look forward to trying your games soon. Until next time, have a great night.